Good morning, witchpreneurs, and I hope you have enjoyed this event that has been put on by Libby Armstrong and throughout this whole collective witchery. I bet you've learned an awful lot of things, and I hope that they've done you well. Last year, I taught Techno Witch, and I taught you about the idea that magic is cyberspace and cyberspace is magic. Well, just a little more than a year later, it's becoming a real reality. I mean, did you not hear the announcement yesterday about Facebook and entering the metaverse in a major way, hiring 10,000 people and $1 billion investment directly right off the bat? And you're asking yourself, what is all this stuff? Oh my, last year you were just talking about Gmail stacks and how to get your Gmail, which is, of course, you get a Gmail account and then you build your brand. From there, you get, your YouTube channel, you get your drives, you get your spaces, you get your analysis, and then you get your Twitter account, your Instagram account, Facebook account. I was talking about Clubhouse. Sorry about that. Coffee went down the wrong way. Clubhouse, which was the audio files. Oh my God, they keep throwing all this stuff at us. And yes, they will continue to do so. Hi, I'm Ed the Pagan, your favorite techno witch, techno magician, and I am a lover of all things magical and technological. I really appreciate it. And as today we're going to be talking about brands in the metaverse. And what is a brand? Let's start with that. A brand is essentially your reputation. It's the reputation that other people repeat, and that they either want to deal with you or don't want to deal with you based on your reputation. How do you build that reputation? Well, the old-fashioned way is word of mouth, and then advertising helps out an awful lot. If you have good advertising and good word of mouth, you have a good brand, and then people want to hire you. If you have lots of advertising, you can sometimes overcome a bad word of mouth for a while. Not forever, just for a while, because then everybody knows it's a bad product. So your reputation is important. The four agreements idea is keep an impeccable word, do as you say. But as you go out, your quality as an individual, as a person, will get to be known. For you, it's oftentimes if you're a coach or a tarot reader. We're going to use tarot reader as an example here. I'm working on creating a sort of strange little alien creature called, Tarot AI. And it's the reputation of that. Oh, I got a great reading. Where'd you get it from? Oh, I got it from my little friend Tarot AI. Or your name or other names, people will talk about it. And then they says, well, how do I find them? Now, in the old days, you had to rely on like a business card, a memory, maybe some advertising. There was a long path from the top of that funnel to you to find your customers. You had to find people who were sympathetic to your cause, sympathetic to your ideology, then wanted that product or idea, in this case, the tarot reading, had to find a location where you could go both meet. And then it was changed to telephones. It was a key element that changed everything. But first you had to meet, and then you met, and then you had readings, and then you would go off. And oftentimes these trade shows, which were called psychic fairs, the equivalent of a psychic trade show, you would go off and you would sell 15-minute to 30-minute sample readings. And hopefully a handful of those people would then convert with your business cards and your literature, would then convert into your longer term reading if you had the space. One of my very first businesses was called Psychic Services Incorporated. And what we did was we created a co-sharing space. Yes, co-sharing's been around a lot longer than you think. And I set up a co-sharing, a shared office space, co-share, where you could rent offices for readings for people who are at home on the farms in 1992, 93. And it lasted for about 2 years until a very interesting piece of technology. Now I'm getting my job already wiped out because of a little company called Amazon, who just bought every book out of my store that I was working at. And people have heard that story, so I'm not going to go into that so much. But the fact is, technology hit me there. But technology would also close down psychic services in a big way. And that would be the advent of the tarot reading by telephone, right? Telecommunication and telephone would bring that process. And so that was really a big attempt. So prior to that, people wouldn't even believe that you could do a tarot reading over the telephone. You had to have their energies. They would make all sorts of reasons not to it. But once everybody got started on the phone and it became easier and easier commercially. I remember people sending envelopes of cash. They would send checks to people. They would, you know, that sort of, a lot of things of that nature to pay for it. 800 numbers, 900 numbers were a big thing, where you just call and they would add to your telephone. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars later, you would be like, oh my God, my telephone bill. So they have always had this sort of technological means of offering this to us. Today, the next step, of course, was then the internet came in. You were able to advertise more. You were able to start doing it. Xbank came in, which became PayPal, which made Elon Musk a lot of money, which began his adventure. But it began, I was one of the first people on Xbank. I had an account really very early on. It was very interesting. Then it became PayPal. And then it was able to use for eBay. It's freed us up. It took our cash and digitalized it enough so that we could function on the internet. You know, and at that time, I remember people going, why would I put my credit card on the internet? It's so dangerous. I remember that. I remember that line. But eventually today, we don't even think about it anymore. Not quite the same way. Because as they monetize things, as you were able to use PayPal to buy things, we're able to do so. So the exchange of the marketplace became, and eBay became everybody, you know, had all sorts of names when it first started out. It was the thrift store. It was the garage sale that everybody could have. It became a venue for everybody, the average person with a handful of skills, to be able to sell things. You had to be able to describe it. You had to be able to fill out a form. You had to be able to take pictures of it. And then you had to be able to ship it. And trust me, the shipping part was by far the hardest part of that. And then you could do that. I had a gold seal at one point on eBay. So I went through that process. Again, what does this have to do with metaverse? Well, it has everything to do with metaverse, because every time we go around, we've been creating situations to suck out the energy out of the middleman. And only middlemen that were allowed to come in were ones that could aggregate a large amount of traffic and bring it to you and give you a sale. So we saw the advent of Keen, K-E-E-N. It's still there today. It's a very useful and valuable service. And they sucked a lot of psychics in there. And they took most of the money. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but you could make a living from home. And that was by telephone oftentimes, but they advertised through the internet. 2008, 9, 10, you saw the advent of organic Facebook. You saw the access to Twitter. These were huge social media platforms. And we had MySpace, which was more musically oriented. And it had its things. We had Friendster before that, and we've had a couple of them, directories. But you saw this sort of energy going to Facebook, and where you could build an audience. And how much does it cost you to build the audience? Just data, just information about yourself, just all of that. Today, we're really, really sensitive to it. And Facebook has really come a long way. But when we first started, you had 140 characters on Twitter and 420 characters on Facebook to express yourself. I remember doing a 10-year experiment explaining it. And those systems grow. Facebook is probably the best place to look at it, because they basically are still a dominant marketplace for 40 to 45-year-olds. And if it's really good, if you want to sell to 90-year-olds, oh my God, there's so many 90-year-olds. Facebook has really won the 70, 80, 90-year-old market. It's done really well. Its predominant market now is the 45 to 65 market, is its primary audience, with 35 and 25-year-olds still in the game, but they moved over to Instagram. I know, Instagram rates a little younger. TikTok was teenager, but as of the last report of last quarter, they're up to about 28 years old as the average age of the user on TikTok. A little harder to use, a little bit shorter videos, but we use them. Clubhouse emerged, and it was a big thing. What is Clubhouse? It was originally an app for just iPhones, but now it's a multiversal app that allows you to have audio chat rooms. You can either use it like a stage where you could just perform like a podcast, or you can have an intimate salon experience, or you can have a shouting match. It's all audio, all in your head. Yes, I'm Ed the Pagan there too. For those who like more retro space, they've allowed Hey Space has come in and it was created by a 19-year-old. It's just like the old MySpace that you remember. There's MeWe. There's MeWe's getting there. It hasn't reached critical mass yet. It's doing pretty well down, and it's doing well in some of the South American areas. It's picking up. So you can see there's a whole range of communication tools. And all of these tools create cyberspace, or create spaces that we exist in simultaneously. So it can get easy, just like you can have a map of the United States and say, well, where should I sell things? It can be really hard to figure it out now today. It's really hard. And only those people who have built that foundation, who are building that foundation towards brand, that sort, kind of creating that idea of being there. Now, my own project, witchschool.com, which is being controlled now by the church. And it's a seminary. It's been a lot of great people have come in because it got too big for me, and it's a difficult project at times. We just went through a major overhaul. So become a member, $20 a month. You can learn so much. 35 free classes. We get the usual thing. But its brand has been, so you want to be a witch, or how to become a witch. And over 20 years, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary, which is a very long time. Even Yahoo groups and a lot of big companies couldn't make it 20 years. But we did, and it was an exact database and everything else. And so we were able to create a community. And from that website, in the early days, let me tell you, if you talk about social media before Facebook, we had chat rooms, we had forums, we had all sorts of different tools. And we still do, but we've evolved on it. But now you have all these other options you can make your community. And we're on Facebook, we're on these other systems, but we built from a foundation. And remember, one of the foundations I tell everybody, love your message, not your platform. It's an essential aspect of this. Love your message. Identify your message, because your message will tell you what's important. Let me use my example of witch school. So you want to be a witch. Today, we know witchcraft is growing out of the roof, and it has been ever since the internet began. The growth of paganism, Wicca, witchcraft, metaphysicals, paranormal, all of that's been growing in interest along with the internet, because it took away something. The internet took away something that you had to talk to your neighbors. Before you went to get this information, you had to go to your local public library. Was it being censored? Was it being people see it? Did you look weird? So when you had a lot of physical interaction to carry out your stuff, you would have to find a handful of people, and sometimes groups would form. There were a lot of groups that formed, but it didn't have this sort of like, I could talk to a lot of people. Digitizing information begins a process of discovering other people, and you don't realize how many other people have an exact same shared interest. Now, this Witchpreneur Summit could not have happened 20 years ago because there was a bad attitude towards monetizing. When I first monetized, and people go, oh, it's bad, monetized. I was doing it at pennies on the dollar, and I was building things, and I still do. I have to make a dime work like a dollar. I just do every day, because I just don't have the money, even after 20 years, the type of money I would like to come in. The truth is that I get talked to all the time when I do my Google Analytics. We're investing a certain amount of money. Oh, about 10% of what they say, oh, you should do $300 a day. We're not doing anywhere near that. We're lucky. Right now, I do about $20, $25 a day in Google advertising. And that brings us a steady flow of people that we can handle. It doesn't let us have the hyper growth that we were having early on, but we did have hyper growth. Oh my gosh, when we went to Houston, Illinois and had our big fight, we grew really rapidly by our standards. And today we're the largest Wiccan tradition, not just online, but in the world in general. And that's because the internet allowed us to create a universe, a place where mentors could be anywhere in the world, and you could be anywhere in the world, and it could be local. A lot of temples fall from this idea of a temple mentor, or a person that were local to you, which you learn online and have this sort of educational backup. So if you're a mentor, if you're a high priest, a high priestess, you can have a backup of teaching these lessons. You could teach them personally, but they were backed up on you. And so that you could then not worry about taking the exams. They can go online. They can get the reading material. The reading materials for all of our classes are online. Sure, we have books and things like that, but that's not our main thrust. We give it to you online. We used to give out PDFs. We're going to return to PDFs. We're going to return to ebooks. We're now building things, and I'll talk about how we are changing that really fast, how we're dealing with that from Witch School point of view. But you can also communicate directly with people. So they built their relationships online. Some of these people have never met each other and have deep and intimate relationships because they utilize the internet to create a spatial connection, a form of I feel you, you feel me. And it's a meeting of the minds. So the original, between 2000 and 2010, a lot of the energy that was put into the internet was to feel like we're connected. Email, Yahoo groups, chat rooms, sending each other pictures. Oh yeah, it used to take forever to get a picture. You uploaded it and sent it to somebody. Oh my gosh. And our memes, we've always had memes. Memes are small bits of information that actually make up our identity, our knowledge base, in much the same way that bits of DNA build up the way that our bodies look. It's we may have this core of DNA which builds our body structure, but little tweaks and it'll give us brown hair or blue eyes, or if you're very, very strange, it'll give you some quirk that you like, and then it might even give you super abilities beyond it. But it's a matter of tweaking those memes, and then you absorb them. This is how you change your thoughts, how you become a super thinker, by getting sort of these baseline thoughts and getting the right knowledge to yourself in the right way that helps you build your personality. And your personality is the essential part of brand that's important. So you need to become remarkable in your niche, because now not only do you have more connections, but you also have more competition. You're not just the only tarot reader in the neighborhood. You might not be the only tarot reader to know. When I started out with Head the Pagan, I was taught, well, keep the moniker because it was given to me by the internet, not to the internet, by mainstream media in 1995 on talk radio. But because of it, they said, well, you may be the only pagan anyone ever knows. Little did they know that's in the internet would cause an explosion of knowledge. But I was, because of my brand, because of my naming, because I had a very unique name. If you look it up on the internet, I'm still Ed the Pagan everywhere. It's unique. It's very unique. And it was given to me from an outside source, which gave me credibility. And then I absorbed it. And then recently it had become much more. And now it's my metaverse name. Yes, we're going to do that. So the next thing that derives is that we've gotten Facebook, we've gotten all of this. We got YouTube, which was, we were an early player in YouTube, and we have podcasts. I was an early player in Blog Talk Radio, 13 years, 6,000 hours. I put in the labor. This is not me just trying to offer you advice because, oh, this is what I think you should do. I'm offering these types of things, the things that I have done. And people go, oh, you're wildly predictive. I go, no, I'm not. I'm really looking at what's happening now and just telling you it's happening now. And you're seeing it years later because it takes time to mature these things. So what I'm telling you today is that yesterday, Facebook announced the metaverse. Everybody's been met over the last couple of months. This is like you hearing about the World Wide Web, which was the HTTPS protocols, which would allow us to build websites in a big way in 1993, where you could have bought some of the earliest names, where you could have built your first websites. I did it on GeoCities. I was pretty early in the game. I've been watching it because I had also used nets like Prodigy, AOL, CompuServe. Okay, yes, I'm dating me. That's when the electronic dinosaurs walked. I've been probably through more computers than I care to admit. But now we have this idea of a metaverse. Let me go ahead and describe what the metaverse is. The metaverse is the idea of where virtual and cybernetic reality create spaces that interact and or replace physical realities. So Pokemon Go is a game. If you've never played it before, it's a free game. It's fairly simple. And what it does, it takes a whole planet, takes our Earth, and imposes a reality on it of Pokemon, that we live on a world full of Pokemon. Pokemon are pocket monsters. And you go around with Pokeballs or weapons that capture them. You put them in your storage areas and you fight with them against other Pokemon players. What makes a game unique is that it rewards you for physically walking in the real world. And they have the way that you get your Pokeballs and other supplies is by going to Pokestops. And these Pokestops are usually attached to a piece of art. They can be attached to buildings. It can be passed to all sorts of areas, and you can be walking past them. So now if you see a kid working on the phone, doing things like this, or an adult like me doing things like this, they may be playing Pokemon because it's imposed up top of our reality. It's an augmented reality aspect. And it has a very big value. They're doing $5 billion a year based on the game and all of the materials and all the It's clothing they sell you. Most of it's virtual. You can buy some physical clothing. You can make your avatar look a different way. You can sell parts of the game. I probably invested like $30, $40 in the last couple of weeks in the game, something I hadn't done before, because it's very compelling. It has these sort of dopamine hits, but it exists on top of it. If you can get a Poke Gym, which is where you and your other trainers, that's what they call us. They don't call us anything else. They don't call us fighters. They call us trainers, where we're training the Pokemon how to be the best combats they are. And we feed them candy and all sorts. You can get a Pokestop. The friendly little game shop down the street, they get a Pokestop, and people go in there and battle on a daily basis. And this then helps your store. If you're a friendly little game shop, and it's a real name out of Florida, or Chamberlain Books is another one. There's all sorts of different places where they're at. They exist in everywhere in the country. You can go play this game. Now, what does it have to do with virtual reality? It means we can do the same thing. They also have a Harry Potter game that has not been so successful doing the same thing. Another piece of metaverse that's coming in that's being very useful is GPS, global positioning systems. It's used to build Uber system. I mean, probably the biggest thing that I think that the GPS has built is the idea of you be able to find anywhere. I use Google Maps an extensive amount, and I love traveling. And I used to have to carry paper maps. I'm a very good map interpreter. I've learned how to do it over the years, but I find GPS so much easier. And most of the time it works. I mean, you still have to have awareness where you're at and things like that. And you're not hearing about, and like every good technology, you're not hearing about disappearing. You know, people driving into cornfields in the middle of nowhere, or rivers, or getting tracked lost. It happened, but because now it's been reiterated and rebuilt millions of times, it's gone from your TomTom or your GPS device on your car to now having it on your phone. That's the dematerialization of physical objects into your phone. Your phone, your computer, your device is slowly but surely absorbing these. And now you have a GPS. So you can go anywhere in the world, practically anywhere else, as long as you can get some sort of signal and or download it. You can even download it ahead of time if you know what you're doing. And then you have these wonderful, beautiful maps. And you probably use them on your website to get people to come to you if you want to do readings or if you're doing psychic fairs. So that's another advent. So what's going to happen next is two things. We're going to turn these glasses and other things into devices that interact with the internet. We're already doing that. A good example is medical pieces. Freestyle Libre. It's for diabetics, and you can put a patch on yourself and then take your phone, and it's going to constantly tell you your blood sugar. This is a major advent for diabetics, and it's really accurate. It's accurate enough to be a product, and it's only going to get more accurate. It's other things that you're going to be able to look at your glasses. And as you can see, I have this great effect happening this morning. It's very important. I have a recursive effect. I'm looking at myself on the screen, which is looking at me, which is looking at you. And if you look at it, it's like an infinity in my eye. You know, Odin blessed me this morning. That we kind of build these sort of worlds. So a metaverse is a persistent world that exists in cyberspace that can interact with us in this space. Right now, they're calling it IRL space. There's some people are going to call it physical space. Our idea of this reality in the next generation is going to change. It's not going to be seen as it's going to be seen as the dominant one. It's almost like the storage level. Like you have to have your computers and servers, and nations are going to have to look at protecting their digital assets the way that we look at our military assets and our corporate assets. And so that's going to happen. Or they can augment it. So you can look at a great way that they're doing it. Microsoft HoloLenses has got a great system of doing it, where they have the screen that you put on your face while you're on an oil well. Now, I don't like oil wells so much, but this is their big customer. But you can do repairs, and then you can look at something. Well, you can only understand so much. Your brain can only calculate so much. But if you're looking at dials and widgets, the computer then can pick it up right away and go, oh my God, that dial is saying we are having a buildup of steam or pressure. Okay. And it can then tell you, let's analyze it. And it can feed information to you so you can do your repairs. For you, what if you're doing your car repair and you're in the middle of nowhere and you want to fix a car? Well, you don't have to be an expert anymore. They can give you step-by-step instructions with visual cues, and they can help you identify parts in your car. Let's take a surgeon. Surgeons are now doing more and more teleoperating, which means they're using robots to do very precise work at a distance, or they can look at you, examine you at a distance. But what if you're suddenly in an emergency where you have no doctor, but you have these lenses on? And you call the ambulance and say, well, the person will be in 30 minutes or 20 minutes. Let's say you're in real distance. And they go, well, what can I do right now? Then you look at the individual, they'll ask you to move and do certain things. And they can give you instructions, both through the lenses and through it out. If necessary, you could do an emergency epidemic and they can take you step by step through it. So this is going to create instant knowledge, instant expertise, instant skill sets, which is a matter of you now really being able to control your body in a way. So it's going to enhance our ability to control our bodies and at the same time gather more and more data. If you're worried about data collection now, the digital aura that I taught you last year is going to be a very essential tool. So now your digital body exists, your digital aura exists, and now you can even enter into spaces that are your avatar. Now imagine if you wanted to do a really good reading, you can put on your headphones and your Oculuses or your HoloLenses or any number of ones out there, put on your gloves, and you can enter into a room where you have, let's just say for a moment, a table with 2 chairs and a tarot deck, and you can do a tarot reading. And for the senses, that tarot reading, depending on the number of pixels and the way it renders, you can just put it on the table and do an amazing reading and have an avatar that looks like you or whatever you want it to look like, and the customer could do that. And you'll be able to see facial expressions because they're tied in like a camera. Zoom is a great example of this. Zoom really has given us that first taste of the metaverse life, the astral projection into cyberspace life, the sort of group life that we want to have visual. And everybody says Zoom exhaustion. They said that about cyberspace. They said this about everything. But as it gets integrated more and more into our lives, we get more and more of it. It becomes more and more important to us. So you walk into this room, you sit down, do your tarot card reads. Now, it's just a table, chair, and everything else. But what if you suddenly wanted to, you show them their cards, everybody can get examples, they do the reading, and you're done. But what if you want something more out of that? You could take, say, the wisdom card, or, which one's the wisdom card? For me, it's the hermit. You can pick up the hermit, and you could actually have the hermit stand up out of that card and talk to your person on a pre-programmed piece in which you can make a dozen choices. Now, for me, Tarot AI, remember we talked about that beginning, is going to begin building. It exists in there and can act as an assistant, which gives you like, oh, did you think about this connection, that connection? Could possibly enter a person's data and get information from them to help them understand. That's one, yeah. That's the one that's probably most dangerous for people. Or it can go through the millions and millions of readings it does and give you a reading based on that. It can go from being very pithy to very ecstatic to very energetic. So that's a very big possibility. You can create these spaces, these avatars, these energies. You can go to Unity to learn the experiences, and you can always just contact me and I'll give you a real good talk about how it all works. And that sort of works. But the metaverse then becomes a reality. It's not artificial reality. People will talk about the metaverse as an artificial reality or artificial world. So the way they talk about artificial intelligence, there's just intelligence. It's depending how it's expressed. Does it have consciousness? Does it have knowledge? AI, and right now a lot of it is just expert systems of highly advanced programs that carry out certain functions. That's all it is. And it's getting better and better at it. And we're going to eventually adapt to it. Metaverse will allow you to create your imagination. It's going to be a space where you can create your imagination in the outside world. Bring it inside and then respect it into cyberspace. So if you ever want to be a fashion designer, well, you can design virtual clothes now. You can actually practice, and you can go through thousands of iterations before you find exactly that. And because the metaverse is interpinges on the physical universe, you can then take that piece of clothing, say it's a t-shirt, which is the easiest thing in the world to create. And it's just an image on a t-shirt. Then you set it on the t-shirt image, and then you can send it to a printer and get 1 copy if you're willing to pay the price, or a dozen copies, and then have them. But if you wanted to sell them, you don't even have to touch them. You can then set it up on a website or in one of these metaversal spaces, like Second Life is becoming that. And you can sell the t-shirts both physical, oh, I want it on my body, or you can sell a cyber copy where I want it on my avatar. Gucci just did this and everything else. So the last thing about the metaverse, and this is important to your brand and get involved, do some study, is something called NFTs. We talked about blockchain. Blockchain is this idea of permanency inside cyberspace. It gives a physicality, a idea that if I have a Bitcoin, I can sell you the Bitcoin and then I won't have one. Prior to that, I could sell you a Bitcoin, but I would keep mine. So we'd have all these copies. Well, now they took that function away so that if I want to give you my $58,000 Bitcoin, and biggest mistake of my life, I didn't buy it when it was cheap. I believed in it, but I didn't believe in it enough. And oh yeah, we would be having a very different conversation if I had done that. So this is your wake-up call to this reality. I'm going to be very much involved with it, but it's a fungible token, meaning all of them are kind of the same, but it's unique to you. So that in the sense of that you have it on your hard drive, and for you to get your money, you have to transfer it to somebody else's hard drive through an exchange. So it's a very physical thing. So NFTs, non-fungible tokens, and I'm learning about them, and I'm going to tell you, even I'm having it so sweeping. It's been around since 2017. They're now becoming that. For most people, they're pieces of art like JPEGs and GIFs that are original and that you can control and that you own the original, and everybody can see that you own the original. And that code says this is the original, and you could sell it. You can use it to do all sorts of things. For artists, it's with the incoming screens. Yes, screens everywhere. Magic is everywhere. So is TV. Great model from 2005 is that with the screens, you can then transfer and say you can have a whole art collection of original art that you show on a screen in your house. You know, what's the value of that? Well, the value of love of art. I mean, the same thing it's always been. But then you can do things like do a record album. And people then can transfer that record album, but not create new copies. You know, we have always been copy music and, you know, ways to copy. We love music, and then, you know, selling albums. And then, but when we had the physical vinyl album or a CD, you could sell that to your friend and you'd get cash on the used piece. Now with an NFT, and this is the importance to every artist, every book writer, this is what's going to change. It gives a physicality, i.e. a blockchain value to it. It can't be duplicated, not in that way. And it marks itself as an original. So you can have an album that is musical, but when you go to resell it because of value increases or whatever, you just don't need it anymore, you get your money, but the artist, the original producer of that NFT, the non-fungible token, gets a royalty that's built in. So now you can build a tarot deck for the cyberspace on an NFT. And if it sells to somebody else through, you know, the buyer, you get your royalties. And every time that exchanges in the future, this is essential. This is what makes it so valuable to get in now, is the value of these things go up. And 98% of them are not going to succeed, just like everything else. A lot of it's going to fail, but there's going to be a handful of them that's going to succeed, and they're going to get more valuable. And if your product is one of those things that get bundled up and gets growing and sells a lot, you'll get a royalty from an album you wrote 20 years ago automatically through the NFT or your books. Not only that, but they have a contract set to them from the day they're minted. And let's say you sell, well, I'm going to sell 100,000 copies of my tarot deck. Today's market allows for that. Then that can go into, say, a tarot AI program, which they can use that tarot deck with all its definitions, all it means, all that value. But it can also say, I will get a reading from you as a reader once a year, as long as somebody owns this NFT. Or you get a reading once a year at a reduced price, or you can get or you get invited to a convention, or you get to have a Zoom room with me once in a while, or I will teach you how to do things. You can put any type of contract on it, and that contract then becomes an increasing amount of value to it. And even after the contract's discharged, you could say it's discharged. The original object is still there. Imagine people who buy Grateful Dead tickets for concerts that are long gone. People collect things. People love status and collection. And with a system called Open Wallet, we can be able to share what we own. So let me go ahead and start wrapping this up for you. So you already know about being a techno witch and having to have these sort of social media platforms and all of this. And most of the advice you've received is in that space. That space is going to be around for another 4 or 5 years. and it's probably going to be around for the rest of your life. Email's still here, though GeoCities isn't. E-groups aren't. So you do see some of this technology fade away and gets mothballed as it becomes less valuable. But I think today a lot of the worlds that we're dealing with are going to be persistent enough. MySpace, everybody thought it was going to last forever. I mean, it was so much that News Corp bought it for $600 million. And that was an early bid. Instagram was bought for $1 billion. So people think these things are going to last for a long time. Some of them will, some of them won't, some of them will last that. But we still have a lot of room for Facebook, Twitter. So Twitter is up in the market. They're having struggles since they've lost their main, as they kicked off their main customer, their main content producers. You're still seeing those are valuable. You're going to see other types of apps come and go. So it's going to be valuable, but the collective of that, love your message, not your platform, will continue. So you need to continue to build your personality. You need to continue building your brand, continue to getting content out there. Doing recordings through Zoom is a good way. You got to keep your message out there. But as this thing emerges, you need to grab your identity. Remember, I'm big in grabbing your identity, no matter the platform. If I'm Ed the Pagan. So I'm in a lot of spaces, even if I'm not active in them, I hold my name so that I can build my brand. So that as I go into the metaverse, and I can share more of my identity, right, and go into these spaces, I can find ways of doing so. I'm going to do one last thing, see if I can do it. Oh, nope. I don't have it up. That you can be able to share more of your personality and interact with these spaces. And as we go into AR, which is augmented reality, which is on top of this one, you go to a psychic fair, and as you look at the sign, they go, oh, who's there? You look, and it can automatically feed you everybody that's there in a physical way and a mental way. And even if you're miles away, you can go ahead and still be involved. They can say, oh, I'll give them a call. They're going to give more and more information. We're going to process more and more information, and more you're going to be reviewed. People will be able to talk about your product. And this is, so if you're a good reader, if a solid reader, people like you, you'll get more and more positive reviews, which will then build your appetite. Then you'll enter into these physical spaces. If you can build your own physical spaces, and it's going to get easier and easier to build them, terrific. You can build an entire world based on your thoughts. Or it can be as very simple as a table and chairs, and you sit there. And this will come entering our world. There's a lot more I can talk about it. There's a lot more energy I can explain, because I can go on Rhapsody. But what's most important for you is, are you going to create in this new space? Are you going to create in 3 dimensions? Are you going to create augmented pieces that people know about? Are you going to create NFTs, non-fungible tokens of art or creativity? How are you going to interact as a creator? The metaverse is coming. You heard it yesterday. You're hearing it all the time. It's going to become a buzzword. We're going to be able to start exploring more into it. And it's just amazing. So the Witchpreneur Summit is an example of the maturing internet, which is going to be maturing in the metaverse. And I have no doubt that Libby's already on this. In a couple of years, we're going to have this virtual conference where we're going to walk around, talk around, and at the end of the day, drink coffee with each other. Yeah, it'll be virtual, but who knows? We don't know how it's going to affect our brains. So this is a great way. So the telepathic revolution is coming. The metaverse is coming. It's here. Everything I've talked about today actually exists. I've not done anything that's speculative. And as it moves into, it's very important as a marketer, very important as a brand to move into these spaces. With that, blessed be. I'm Ed the Pagan. And yes, you can find me anywhere in the metaverse.